How would you suggest a program or even an individual faculty member select their learning outcomes? Well, this is a fairly big question when we consider a program and an individual faculty member. So let's break it down a little bit and first approach the individual faculty member. So let's go under the assumption that what our goals are is to facilitate deep comprehension in our students. And that means over the course of the semester, what we're trying to do is get them from basically no understanding or a very shallow level of understanding to a much deeper understanding of the knowledge, one where they're connecting the knowledge together, they're putting pieces together and doing things like problem solving. And if that's the case, and that's what we're trying to do, we can actually turn to Bloom's taxonomy to at least give us some guidelines in thinking about how are we writing our learning objectives for class. So maybe early on in the semester, we are taking the remember and the understand and maybe some of the apply verbs from the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy, right? The shallow level stuff. And we're going to start by writing learning objectives around that, maybe taking a few of the top level ones like evaluate or apply or analyze. And then what we can do is as the unit and the semester goes along, instead of doing remember and understand, we're taking more apply and analyze. And then towards the end of the semester, ultimately what we want our students to do is create and evaluate. So when we're thinking about how we're selecting our learning outcomes, it's that interface between the topic that you're teaching and what you can do with those top level, high level verbs or those lower level verbs depending on when you are in the class. And I think that that will get your creative juices flowing for thinking about how am I selecting them. Now, what's important and what's not important is entirely up to you. As you are teaching and thinking about what it is that's important to you as a professor, that's up to you. That's your creativity, and using those verbs is going to spark some of that knowledge to think about, okay, well, what's important to me? What do I think they need to know? And how can these verbs create exercises or create objectives that the students will then perform and ultimately build their knowledge to the deeper end. For the program, for an entire program, I think that we can kind of take the same approach. If we're looking for a program, obviously the program is going to focus more on the deep end. We want our students to understand this on a more complex, deeper level. So when we think about it holistically, we might want to think about what are some of the things the students are doing in terms of the top level of Bloom's taxonomy, the create, the evaluate. And I think as a program, again, what's important to that program is going to be largely dependent on what it is you're teaching. Is it a K-12 program, undergrad, grad, law school, med school, business school? All of those things are going to factor in, but if we use Bloom's taxonomy to think about it, I think it gives you a better idea of how do we select them, how do we write them. Just remember, it's all up to you and it's all up to the program, and ultimately it centers around what do you feel is important, what do you want your students to come away with, and then use Bloom's taxonomy to roll that in to think of how the objectives are going to be written and stated.